Starting in the audio hobby can be overwhelming because there's a lot of things that you need to learn, but let me help you out here. These are my top 10 essential IEM tips that you should know. So this is mainly for those who starting out in the hobby, and of course for those more experienced in the hobby, you learn a thing or two from this guide as well. So number one tip is use the highest bitrate possible from your audio source for the max audio quality. So each audio source has its own bitrate. So the bitrates range from 128 to 256 to 320, and of course to lossless as well. So when you have higher bitrate, you just have a lot more information in that file, of course, to play in your audio gear. I recommend lossless, at least 16-bit in this one, so go for FLAC files if possible. When you're using streaming services, unfortunately for Spotify right now, it's until around 320 kbps. So if you want a higher bitrate streaming service, you might want to go to Tidal, or also if you want a cheaper option, go to Deezer. I actually use personally Deezer nowadays, so I do recommend Deezer. That's fewer choices but higher bitrate playback, so Deezer is your friend. Okay, number two tip, this more for earphone care. So before unplugging your IEMs, pause the music first, or turn down the volume first before unplugging it, because sometimes when you unplug it and it's in the middle of playing a certain music, it may cause unwarranted pops in your IEMs, which may cause the drivers to break. So you want to avoid that for sure. Okay, tip number three is each IEM has a different tuning, so know the tuning that works for you. So it can be a V-shaped kind of tuning, which means that the mids are recessed in the mix. It can be a warm tuning, which means that the bass is a little bit more boosted and the highs are a little bit more toned down in the mix. It can be bright sounding also, which means that the treble is elevated in the mix. It can be also neutral sounding, which means that there's no frequency that's elevated in the mix. It can also be bass heavy, which means that the bass are more boosted. You know, different signatures, different purposes, different signatures work well for different kinds of genre. So know what signature is the right one for you. Know which signature works best for you in your genres. So it will be kind of up to you to figure that out, but definitely yes, know the signature before buying a certain IEM. Alright, tip number four is fit is really important in the ear. So find the right fitting tips to your ear. So I've tried this with several IEMs. Just, you know, a different fit changes the sound completely. For this one, you need to find a perfect balance of fit in your ear. So for my ears, it's around medium kind of size. So different brands of tips and different makeup of tips fits differently in your ear. So find which one is the best for you and keep that brand. Usually if it doesn't fit nicely on your ear, the bass quantity is reduced and the whole signature is just off, and also the dynamics of the IEM is also affected. So for me, frankly, spin fits nicely on my ear. It's one of the best fitting, but it might not be for you. So find the right fit, find the right brand, and reserve a couple of them for your future IEM purchases to make sure that each IEM fits in your ear nicely. Or tip number five, this more for earphone care again. So your driver has a volume limit, so don't max out your volume as much as you can. Try your best not to reach the limit of the driver because it might break your IEM driver. So that's a limit on how far it can move. So don't max out your volume. Try not to, at the least. So I did encounter that before, that I had a BA based IEM and I forgot that the volume is around 90 to 95%, because I do have some amplifiers with some knobs, and the knobs got moved around in a bag, and when I opened it, it just blasted to the IEM and it broke one of the BAs there. So make sure that you take care of your audio gear. Don't max out the volume. Or tip number six is EQ is your friend. So there may be times that you want to change up your listening experience. For example, if you're listening to hip-hop tracks and you can have a neutral-ish kind of IEM, you can boost up the bass a bit to make it a bit more fun to listen to. Or if you're listening to maybe pop music and you want to have a more kind of fun experience, you might want to go for a V-shaped kind of sound. So if you don't want to buy a new IEM, maybe just EQ your current gear. It just has a little bit more variety, so it just makes your IEM hobby more fun. So EQ is your friend. Tip number seven, it is more for earphone care again. So it's always a good practice to start out with the low volume first before playing a certain track, and then after that slowly turn the volume up. So for me personally, I start always with around 5% volume. I put on my IEMs, and that's the only time that I turn up the volume to a good listenable volume. So this way it won't hurt your ears, because sometimes you have a mistake that maybe you leave it to maybe 90% or 80% volume, put in your IEM and you play that music and it blasts on your ear, and that's a bit hurting and fatiguing to your ears, especially for audio enthusiasts. We want to take care of our ears because we want to enjoy the music hobby for a long time. It will help your ear health a lot. Right, tip number 8 is more for IEM care. Is always clean your gear after usage. So IEMs is something that you wear in your ear, and your ear can have some perspiration or maybe some body oils as well. It can seep in your IEM and also the cables as well, and it may produce some unwarranted maybe buildup of humidity and also some greening to your cables. So you would want to avoid that. So to avoid that, after using it, especially if you perspire with your IEMs, have a clean cloth and then wipe the dirt and also the grime and also the perspiration off your eye before storing it. So for me, frankly, I do that all the time, especially with my headphones, because sometimes when I do some gaming, after a certain maybe 5 hours of gaming session, I have some perspiration on my ear already, and I wipe them all off, because before I did experience that and I forgot to wipe my perspiration off, and after that the leather bogged down easier and I need to buy new pads after that. So that's kind of troublesome, so you would want to avoid that. So just clean your gear after use, especially when you're gonna store it. Just wipe it off with a clean cloth. That will help out in your IEM longevity. Alright, tip number 9, this is something that I do personally all the time. So if you have a CD collection, I personally have one as well. You can extract it to FLAC files, as I mentioned. Target to have the best source that you can. It's very easy to use, and you can also find the album art online, so it just makes your tracks more organized. So each CD rep just takes me around 15 to 30 minutes per rep, but definitely it's worth it, especially for those CD collectors out there. So for me, I do like to have hardware, and I do display it in my room as well. So for those who is into that, you can rip it to FLAC to store it in your DAP. Exact audio copy is my recommendation. I'm gonna link it down in the comments below. Alright, tip number 10, to this, the types of IEMs that you can buy, especially on the budget range. So there are two usual drivers. It's dynamic drivers and also balanced armature, or BA. So usually BA has a more kind of tight sound, more of a clean kind of sound. Dynamic drivers are usually more kind of punchy sound, more smoothish kind of sound. So they're different sounding. They play well for different kinds of music, and also it will kind of depend on your preferences which one you like, but find the right drivers for you. Right, so extra tip here, and might be my most favorite tip. So 11th tip is auditioning is king. So if you're gonna buy a certain IEM, so if you have a chance in auditioning it in a store, that is still the best way to choose an IEM, because your ears are still king. You have different preferences. We each have our own different preferences. So even if I say that one IEM is my favorite, it might not be your favorite. So I learned that through the years, buying stuff that reviewers recommend. So sometimes I don't like some stuff that reviewers recommend. So still trust to your ears in this. Listen to those IEMs with the tracks that you're usually listening to, with the genres that you're usually listening to. So that way you'll even be more sure that that IEM is for you. So for what the reviewers are telling you, use it as a guide for you to start out, but definitely if you can audition it, if you have that option, do audition it before buying. That's still the best way to go about it. Alright, so that's my top 10 essential IEM enthusiast tips. Hopefully you learned something. If you did, of course, leave a like and subscribe for more content like this in the future. And for those more experienced in the hobby, let me know down below what additional tips you like to tell the community here in zpolt Labs. And of course, I'm gonna see you guys in the next video. Bye bye.